In this video I'm going to try to replicate one of the most famous shallow aquascapes on the internet, Crimson Sky by James Findley and the Green Machine. If you have ever browsed YouTube for videos about aquascaping, you have probably seen some content from the Green Machine. Their videos are some of the highest quality and most watched aquascaping tutorials out there. These guys used to have a store in the UK, but unfortunately they closed in 2018, and since then they've also stopped making new content. I've spent many hours watching their videos and learning the methods, but I've never tried to copy or replicate one of their layouts. Well, today that's going to change. Crimson Sky is a beautiful shallow tank with massive rocks and only 3 different types of aquatic plants. So it shouldn't be too difficult to create something similar, right? Well, let's find out. So the shallow tank that James is using is an ADA 120F, so it's 120 by 30 by 20, really cool size, but it seems like it's no longer available. So I've been looking for other options, and I just found this website that has a UNS 90B. It's a little bit different size, but it could work. This website still has one available, so I think I'm just going to order this one. So it's not exactly the same tank, but it's pretty close. This one is measuring 90 centimeters from left to right, 20 centimeters front to back, and it's 25 centimeters tall. Next up we need a light. James used 2 ADA Grand Solars for his shallow tank, but just like the 120F, these are no longer available. I could of course go with 2 ADA Solar RGBs, but let's just say these are a little bit out of my budget. Luckily one of my sponsors came through with a very suitable light for this tank. This is the brand new Skylight Hyperbar. I saw this light for the first time a couple of weeks ago during a trip to Poland, and I love the design and the spectrum. Now, just like the Crimson Sky setup, I want to raise the light quite a bit. And in order to do that, I also got this special light stand from Skylight, which fits perfectly on this tank. That's the first part of the setup done, and it's looking great. We still need a filter and a CO2 system, but we will get to that later. Let's begin with the layout. James always starts by preparing the substrate, and he's always using these magic powders from ADA. I've never used them myself, but let's just give it a try. First up we have ADA Clear Super. This is basically active charcoal powder, so it will help improve the water quality. Then we have Tourmaline BC. This is a mineral which will help the plant roots with absorbing nutrients. And lastly we have Bacter 100, and as the name suggests, these are dormant beneficial bacteria. So with those magic substrate additives in place, we can now move on to the next step. James is using ADA Power Sand, which is basically pumice with more of those additives. I'm just going to use plain old crushed lava rock, and I'll sprinkle some more of those fancy powders on top of it. The final substrate layer is of course AQUASOIL. I'm going to be using AQUASOIL from Daniel Plants because that's what I have available. The next step is of course the hardscape. Now James used some very interesting rocks, or so-called fossilized wood. I've seen fossilized wood before, but it looked completely different, so I'm going to use something else. This is dragon wood, or as some people call it, honeycomb wood. I decided to use it because it has a lot of texture, and at the same time it's pretty flat as well, so that's perfect for this narrow tank. So this is where my layout will take a slightly different direction. Obviously it's impossible to create a one-on-one copy, and that's fine. I'm also going to add in some rocks. The dragonwood hasn't been pre-soaked, so I need something to stop it from floating, and these rocks will do just that. That's the hardscape pretty much done, and I think it looks great. The next step is to lock everything together, and as always I'm going to do that with cotton pads and liquid super glue. If you have never seen this before, I'm basically taking tiny pieces of cotton and wedging them in between the 2 points that I want to connect. Then I soak the cotton with liquid super glue, wait a few seconds, and it's absolutely rock solid. If you repeat this process a couple times, then your hardscape should be really sturdy. So with the hardscape done, we are now ready for planting. But before I do that, I'm just going to prepare the filter. I recently watched a masterclass video from MD Fish Tanks and Jeff Sansky, and I want to prepare the filter exactly like Jeff showed in that video. So I have a pretty large canister filter. This is the JBL E902, but I've taken out the original impeller and changed it to a slightly smaller one. So I still have a large filter capacity, but the flow is more appropriate for this tank. Then I'm adding some biomedia, as well as a big bag of activated carbon, and lastly a small bag of Seachem Purigen. Now back to the tank. Something that James always did was adding substrate supports, and this is to make sure that the sloped substrate would stay intact. So I'm just going to create a few substrate supports out of an old tissue culture cup. Now we are ready for planting, and as always the plants for this project were kindly provided by Denala Plants. Crimson Sky only had 3 aquatic plants, Dwarf Hairgrass, AR Mini and Rotala Bonsai. I've ordered exactly the same plants, including a few others. As expected, the Dwarf Hairgrass will take up most of the foreground to create a lush green carpet. The Rotala bonsai is planted in the foreground and the midground, and this is going to add a vertical element to the overall horizontal layout. And then the entire background will be planted with AR Mini. And this is going to provide a beautiful contrast which makes this layout so special. Now for a little twist. The dragonwood has a lot of gaps, so I was thinking to add some moss. But using moss in a layout with Dwarf Hairgrass is a terrible idea. You see, over time the moss will find its way into the carpet, and once it's in there it's impossible to remove, and it will take over the entire carpet. So instead of moss I'm going to use Cuba. This is also a carpeting plant, but as long as you provide it with enough nutrients it will grow anywhere. I also have a few gaps between the rocks and the wood, so I'm going to fill that up with some Bucephalandra. That's the planting done, so we can now fill the tank up and install the filter. I'm also going to add a CO2 system, and I'll place the CO2 diffuser on the opposite side of the filter outflow. Okay, fast forward, it has been roughly 5 weeks or so. When I filled this tank up for the first time, it was the 13th of October, and today is the 20th of November. So basically a month and a week has passed. And this layout has been very smooth actually. Almost no startup algae and pretty good plant growth, especially with the Cuba, so the plant that's growing on the wood. I've actually already trimmed that once. All the other plants I haven't trimmed yet, but they're doing good. The Dwarf Hairgrass took a little bit of time. I think the first 2 or 3 weeks I didn't really see any growth, but right now we don't have a full carpet yet, but it's getting there. As you can see, we have a bunch of inhabitants as well, and I've chosen mostly inhabitants with a reddish orangey color. So I started with a small group of red cherry shrimp. After that I added a group of amber tetras. They're still quite young, so they're more orange than red, but I think they will color up nicely in the next few months. After that I added a cleanup crew with Cleton snails and sort of an autosynclus type of fish. They're not true autosynclus, but they look similar. And then a couple of days ago I added more red cherry shrimp and also a small group of dwarf rasboras. It's a mix between mosquito rasboras and phoenix rasboras, I think. So yeah, quite a lot of inhabitants, but at the same time it doesn't really feel crowded or busy, you know, so I'm actually really happy with it. I forgot to show this during the planting part of this video, but on the immersed section of the wood I've also added some moss and some Hydrocotyl tripartita. That's this clover looking type plant. And especially on the left side, the tripartita has really taken off and it looks really good. So it's definitely not a one-to-one copy of James's layout, but that wasn't the goal either. I just wanted to build something that was heavily inspired by James and by the Green Machine, and I think we pulled that off. I think I can definitely see the resemblance. So I think that's the end of the video. As always, let me know in the comments what you think of this layout. Smash the like button. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.